Picture a boxing ring. Amsterdam, March 1971. In one corner stands a woman who makes grown men reconsider their assumptions the moment she walks into a room. 6'2", 240 pounds. Not weight room vanity muscle, but the dense, functional kind built over years of throwing full-power kicks and knees into heavy bags and human bodies. Hands that have broken ribs, shins conditioned through thousands of repetitions until they stopped feeling pain and started causing it. A kickboxing champion who had never, not once, lost to a male opponent. In the other corner stands Bruce Lee, 5'7", 135 pounds in wet clothes, a Chinese-American actor that most people in the Netherlands had never heard of. The size difference isn't just significant, it's almost comical. She outweighs him by over 100 pounds. Her thigh is roughly the same circumference as his waist. One clean kick, properly landed, could fold him in half. The Dutch crowd is laughing, not at her, at him, at the premise, at the idea that whatever this is could reasonably be called a fight. They came expecting a spectacle. They are about to witness something considerably more difficult to explain. Her name was Saskia Vanderberg, 28 years old, born in Rotterdam to a family of dock workers, people who understood hard physical work the way other families understood dinner conversation. She had walked into a kickboxing gym at 15, the only girl in a room full of men who treated her presence as a punchline. By 18, she was knocking those same men unconscious. By 22, she held the Dutch heavyweight championship, not the women's division, the actual heavyweight division, competing against men who outweighed her, trained harder than they'd ever trained for any other opponent, and lost anyway. 37 professional matches, 37 wins, 32 by knockout. She had broken jaws, cracked ribs, sent opponents to hospital beds, men who had walked into the ring believing, on some deep and unexamined level, that their masculinity constituted a kind of armor. It didn't. Her right low kick alone had ended 11 fights outright, the damage to the receiving leg so complete the opponent simply could not continue. Her knees to the body had caused internal bleeding. Her punches, thrown with the full rotational force of 240 pounds of committed mass, carried enough power to concuss professional fighters who had been hit by everyone else and stayed standing. When the challenge arrived, carried through underground channels, a request from Hong Kong asking whether the Dutch kickboxing champion would face Bruce Lee in a private exhibition, Saskia's answer came back immediately. Yes, absolutely. She had heard vague rumors about this Chinese actor who claimed to have done something new with martial arts. She hadn't seen any of his films. She knew nothing about Jeet Kune Do or Wing Chun or the philosophy underneath either of them. What she knew was straightforward and, in her estimation, decisive. She was 240 pounds of bone and muscle and scar tissue. He was a movie star who weighed less than most welterweights. 30 seconds, maybe less. Bruce had accepted the challenge for reasons that had nothing to do with pride. He was in Europe running seminars, demonstrating techniques, opening conversations about a way of understanding combat that didn't belong to any single tradition or style. When Saskia's challenge arrived, delivered in person by a Dutch martial arts instructor who trained at her gym, Bruce didn't see a threat. He saw an opportunity. Not to prove he could beat a woman, not to make a point about gender or size as abstract concepts, but to demonstrate something specific and practical, that a deep understanding of physics, leverage, timing, and human anatomy could allow a smaller person to function effectively against an opponent with every conceivable physical advantage. The match was arranged in a private gym in Amsterdam. 20 witnesses, a standard boxing ring, 3 5-minute rounds, full contact kickboxing rules, punches, kicks, knees, elbows, everything except throws and ground fighting. The gym sat in a warehouse district near the port. March in the Netherlands is a particular kind of cold, the kind that moves through walls and settles into the joints before you've finished taking your coat off. Inside, the air held the accumulated smell of old sweat and leather and the specific musk of a space where violence had been happening regularly for a long time. A boxing ring dominated the center of the floor, ropes slightly slack, canvas stained from years of blood and spit and the ordinary evidence of what the space was used for. 20 people formed a loose perimeter around it, mostly Dutch kickboxers, people who either trained with Saskia or had fought her and carried the memory of that experience in their bodies. A handful of journalists, one photographer whose images would later be dismissed as elaborate fabrications by people who hadn't been there, because what the photographs appeared to show seemed, on its surface, to violate the basic operating principles of physics.
Was something more honest and more dangerous. Respect, recognition, the quiet, unwelcome understanding that she was not fighting what she had walked in here expecting to fight. She came forward again, this time with more caution. A jab first, measuring the distance. Bruce slipped it. A right cross followed. Bruce ducked under it. A left kick to the body. Bruce caught it. He actually caught her leg in mid-flight, the leg that weighed more than 40 pounds on its own. He caught it with both hands, redirected it past his body, and swept her supporting leg before she had any possibility of recovering. Saskia went down hard. The ring shook when 240 pounds hit the canvas. The sound was felt as much as heard. The crowd didn't cheer, they shouted, the involuntary disbelieving noise that escapes people when something happens that their minds have already decided cannot happen. Their champion, the woman who had never been taken down in a kickboxing match in her entire career, flat on her back, staring up at the ring lights. Van Damme started the count. 1, 2, 3. Saskia was already getting up. She wasn't hurt, not seriously, just shocked, which for her was almost worse. The referee looked into her eyes, asked in Dutch whether she could continue. She nodded once, sharp and curt. The fury building in her expression needed no translation whatsoever. She had been put on the floor in front of her people, by someone half her size. That was not something she was willing to leave unanswered. The fight restarted. Saskia came forward with everything she had been holding back. No more caution, no more measurement. She launched a combination that would have dismantled most professional fighters completely. Right low kick, left hook, right knee, left elbow, right cross. 5 strikes thrown in approximately 2 seconds, each one individually capable of ending the fight. Not one of them landed clean. Bruce moved through the combination the way water moves through rocks, not fighting the current, simply finding the path. The low kick was checked, the hook was slipped, the knee was redirected, the elbow was parried, the cross was ducked, and in the spaces between her attacks, in the fractions of seconds that existed between one technique ending and the next beginning, Bruce worked. Body shot, liver, solar plexus, ribs, sternum, short punches, unhurried, precise, each one traveling just far enough to arrive with full force, each one making her considerable frame respond in ways she couldn't suppress. Not spectacular strikes, no single one of them would have made a highlight reel, but they were accumulating inside her body the way interest accumulates, quietly and without mercy. 90 seconds into the first round, Saskia was breathing hard. Not from exhaustion, from pain. Her ribs were screaming. Her liver was sending urgent signals she couldn't ignore. Her solar plexus had absorbed 4 separate impacts, each one driving the air from her lungs in a way that required a moment to recover from, and those moments were adding up. She had landed strikes too, A right hand that clipped Bruce's shoulder, a left kick that made partial contact with his hip, but nothing clean, nothing carrying her full committed power. Everything was being slipped or redirected or received at angles that stripped it of what it was supposed to deliver. She changed her approach entirely. If precision wasn't working against him, she would use what she had that he could never match. She rushed forward, trying to clinch, trying to get her hands on him, trying to impose her 100-pound weight advantage by smothering his movement and working knees at close range where speed alone couldn't save him. Bruce didn't retreat. He moved into her rush, directly into it. At close quarters, his hands found her wrists and elbows, controlling her limbs before they could establish a grip. He delivered a knee to her thigh that made her stumble, an elbow to her shoulder that temporarily shut her arm down. He was fighting her in the clinch, the place she was supposed to be most dangerous, and he was winning there too. The bell rang. Saskia walked back to her corner with an expression that the people who knew her best had never seen on her face before. Her coach, a man named Henrik, who had trained her since she was 15, was talking urgently in Dutch, leaning in close, hands moving. She wasn't listening. She was staring across the ring at Bruce, who sat on his stool, breathing normally. No visible distress, no sign that the 5 minutes he had just spent inside that ring had cost him anything significant. Round 2. Saskia came out controlled. She had fought enough fights to know that anger was a resource that drained fast and left you with nothing. She needed to be intelligent, use her reach, keep him at distance, make him come to her where she could time his entries with her low kicks and punish him for every step forward. It was a sound strategy. Against most opponents it would have worked cleanly. Bruce began pressing forward, not rushing, walking. Small, deliberate steps that systematically reduced her room to maneuver. Every time she tried to circle away, he was already adjusting the angle, closing the space, making avoidance more expensive with each exchange. She threw low kicks. He checked them or moved through them, accepting partial contact to land his counters. She threw her right hand, her best punch, the one that had ended more fights than any other tool she owned. He slipped it and put a hook into her ribs that produced a gasp loud enough for the people at the back of the room to hear clearly. 2 minutes into round 2, something changed in Saskia's eyes. It was a specific look, one that anyone who's been in serious competition will recognize immediately, even if they've only seen it in the mirror. The look of a person arriving at the understanding that the result they came here expecting is not the result that is coming. She was bigger, stronger, more powerful in every measurable physical category, and none of it was mattering in the way it was supposed to matter. He was faster, more precise, and the damage he had been quietly depositing inside her body since the opening bell was now collecting interest she couldn't afford to pay. Her ribs were on fire, her legs felt heavier than they should, her breathing was compromised in a way that wouldn't fix itself between exchanges. She threw everything she had left. High kick, spinning back fist, flying knee. 3 spectacular techniques executed with genuine technical mastery and absolute bad intentions, thrown one after another with the commitment of someone who understands this is the moment. Bruce avoided all 3, stepped inside her guard, and threw a right cross that landed flush and clean on her jaw. Saskia's legs simply stopped working. Her massive frame came down the way a building comes down when the foundation gives, not falling sideways, just collapsing, straight down, the structural integrity gone at once. The crowd was screaming, not the partisan noise of before, something rawer, less controlled, a mixture of shock and disbelief, and something that might have been grief. Their champion was down, not stumbling, not shaken, down. Van Damme stepped in and started counting. 1, 2, 3. Saskia's eyes were open but unfocused. Her hands were moving, pressing against the canvas, trying to find the leverage to push herself up. Her body wasn't responding the way it had responded every other time in her life when she had asked something of it. The punch had scrambled everything. 5, 6, 7. She made it to one knee, swaying, her equilibrium working against her. the room tilting in ways she couldn't correct for. 8. She stood, barely. Van Damme moved in close, waved a hand in front of her eyes, asked something in Dutch. She nodded once, sharp and curt. The fury building in her expression needed no translation whatsoever. She had been put on the floor in front of her people by someone half her size. That was not something she was willing to leave unanswered. The fight restarted. Saskia came forward with everything she had been holding back. No more caution, no more measurement. She launched a combination that would have dismantled most professional fighters completely. Right low kick, left hook, right knee, left elbow, right cross. 5 strikes thrown in approximately 2 seconds, each one individually capable of ending the fight. Not one of them landed clean. Bruce moved through the combination the way water moves through rocks, not fighting the current, simply finding the path. The low kick was checked, the hook was slipped, the knee was redirected, the elbow was parried, the cross was ducked, and in the spaces between her attacks, in the fractions of seconds that existed between one technique ending and the next beginning, Bruce worked. Body shot, liver, solar plexus, ribs, sternum, short punches, unhurried, precise, each one traveling just far enough to arrive with full force, each one making her considerable frame respond in ways she couldn't suppress. Not spectacular strikes, no single one of them would have made a highlight reel, but they were accumulating inside her body the way interest accumulates, quietly and without mercy. 90 seconds into the first round, Saskia was breathing hard. Not from exhaustion, from pain. Her ribs were screaming. Her liver was sending urgent signals she couldn't ignore. Her solar plexus had absorbed 4 separate impacts, each one driving the air from her lungs in a way that required a moment to recover from, and those moments were adding up. She had landed strikes too, a right hand that clipped Bruce's shoulder, a left kick that made partial contact with his hip, but nothing clean, nothing carrying her full committed